Hey guys, it's Will. So AI is moving extremely fast in today's world. And one of the fastest growing industries inside of the AI markets is defense, whether it's space related or it could be cybersecurity, or it could be related to some of the security that's coming up around the World Cup. And there's been some interesting theses around Big Bear AI stock gearing up for what will be a large increase in the amount of volume from immigrants from other countries coming into the United States. And if you guys see the background behind me, this is our kitchen that we are remodeling for an apartment that we'll be renting out soon. So I like to make the progress behind, move my setup into here so that we can do both. And hopefully you guys get to see the kitchen slowly get done here throughout the next few days. So that's why the background looks the way that it looks. Before I get into the video, I find it's important to mention that my wife is from Argentina. So I'm not someone that's not familiar with immigration, and we've done everything legal, not illegal. And sometimes I say illegal and people think I say illegal, but legal. And the reality is the biggest issue with a lot of the processing times and everything that happens with immigration is because of lack of tracking. And there's this company, maybe not fully focused on just immigration, at least not from what they share, but BigBear.AI. And we know that when we're analyzing stocks, there's a full breakdown we have to do. Can't just say the RSI is oversold, so it's a buy. We can't say the chart looks good, so it must be good. We have to look at the intrinsic value. We have to look at the news and the financials and everything that would be a catalyst for the company to see momentum. And that's where Big Bear AI is going to get some analysis today. So when it comes to Big Bear, we could start off with this chart here. And to preface the market, not only is it important to find a fast growing, profitable market, but that there's real world usage. Personally, I've seen this tech from this company firsthand. They're in the local Sacramento airport, Denver when I was living in Boulder. I live in California now, but I'm getting messages from you guys saying that you're seeing the technology firsthand. So, of the thousands of viewers that we have, that by the way, thanks so much. We're growing extremely fast, and I'm grateful for all of the opportunity to serve you guys. But the end of the road for validating a market is not how much money is being made, how much profit there is, but if there's real world usage and utility in that market. And we see that with Big Bear. So just to preface. Now, when we've been covering it, we did just do a full analysis yesterday, and we talked about how back in November we were covering it $1.78, somewhere in here, around $1 a share. It surged to $10 a share by February. And we have an average price back there around $2.80. And our long-term positions are doing fairly well, as it's up to about $3.96 right now. Short term, I don't have any positions, but we did trade it earlier this week. I think it was Monday on a swing that it made back here when it bounced at this support. So what's going on with Big Bear? Well, it's in this uptrend since April, and it recently found a sell down to this rising support level, and we're looking for a potential swing up into this 43% margin for profit price point, which would be above $5 a share. If we just did some analysis yesterday, and you can see I haven't touched this, but there is a profit info line that shows the margin for profit, and we drew it yesterday at this trend, but it wasn't at this price yesterday. In fact, yesterday it was, when we did the analysis, right around $4 a share. But we were saying, hey, it's had some volatility. It would make sense that it sells back down to this SMA, this green line that oftentimes will trail as a support in a bullish market, or act as a resistance in a bearish market, which we did kind of see it acting as a resistance there, that 200-day moving average. But it broke above, and we said it could sell back down. It actually sold down this morning, and pretty aggressively, as low as, let's see where it sold down to, as low as 380 here, and then started to recover. So this is really good indication of the direction now, because we see it break above that 200-day moving average, potentially retest this support before continuing to this direction, which would be about a 40% swing. So the next kind of price target, though, before we could get there, we do have some resistance levels we're going to be watching. You have this level here at about $4.12, and that's a previous resistance level, give or take with a little extra volatility, that we're going to be watching closely. This level here is more indication that not only it's finding support, but it's really truly breaking above this EMA, which right now the EMA is kind of acting as a resistance there, and we want to see it break up into this level. It's about a 3 or 4% increase from here, and a break above that $4.15 range would be a lot more indication that we could see it make that run into that $4.50 or $5 range. Now, it's healthy that it's pulling back. In fact, I like that it's having very consistent, not extremely breaking pattern up as well as down. And now that we see it here, it's crucial for its overall direction that it does hold this. But when we look at this move, we're going to watch for this swing up into here. Now, a couple things. We know that institutional interest has been building. Some of the biggest institutions that are the biggest companies in the world that even own, for example, the Panama Canal, basically, BlackRock is a big investor in BBAI. Is it a coincidence that Big Bear is also working a little bit over there in Panama? I'm not really sure. We'll take a look there. But Vanguard, you got Goldman Sachs, a lot of big institutions. Now, big institutions are not always means for a good investment. As we talked about, the usage is important. And also, sometimes companies or institutions purchase shares and move the market because they're going to be on the other side of supporting some short sellers. Now, when it comes to increased positions like this, you see more increased positions than decreased positions, which actually is a sign of some value that they're seeing in the stock. And with Big Bear's movement, if we take a look at their financials, this is where it gets interesting. We've seen their financials kind of heat up recently as they've jumped into this annual increase in revenue since 2020, slowly ramping up revenue as high as 158 million. They did have a net income negative in what was a big piece of that was the last quarter, 2 quarters, and a part of that was just reducing their debt. So while it doesn't look good on the income statement, when we really look at, it's a negative income statement, but why is it negative? And upon doing some deeper analysis, you could see that in that quarter here, in the last quarter, they did significantly pay down their debt. So total liabilities were essentially dropped in half. So you see total liabilities going down, which is good, while their total assets have been rising. So that's good indication they're starting to build more cash. And that brings us to the outlook for their company. Now, they specialize in decision intelligence. So they have a lot of different platforms, from software to even hardware, that specialize in being able to help the US government and other agencies be able to optimize their national security. The CEO previously worked in, I believe it was Secretary of, was it Homeland Security? I'd have to find, oh, there it is. There's the article. Kevin McAleenan was U.S. Department of Homeland Security acting secretary at one point and had a company that was purchased by Big Bear. And when you look at their solutions, or you look at their, their news and some of the contracts that they're securing, they just came out with some more news that they're expanding their biometric technology at major ports of entry, including U.S. and international airports. They actually released finally a list, because there was a couple days ago or weeks when we said they've only announced like 2 airports. It was Denver International Airport and one others. And I've seen it at the airport, and other people are telling me that they're seeing it in many more airports, but they haven't announced that. So what's happening? Well, that's where we found out they just announced even more publicly, which is good. Shows signs of staying up to date with their news, which in some cases is very helpful and sometimes can prove as an advantage because we saw these coming a couple weeks ago. And a couple weeks ago, it was significantly cheaper. We saw it actually at 350 or in this trend down to as low as $2.40. And we saw that market movement, but they hadn't announced it. And that was part of why we were so eager to cover the potential of the company. And so now that we see their technology kind of roll out, for those of you guys wondering what they work in defense. They definitely have their bird's eye view software for analyzing, similar to that of the satellite space company, AI company Black Sky. And they have their own predictive analysis, which seems to be what will be their main focus of increasing their income and profits, which is their Very Scan. The Very Scan is this hardware that's going at airports. The value that it provides is being able to identify threats from many different ports of entry all simultaneously, being able to have authentication of travelers, and all very streamlined. And if you think about it, if you're a TSA agents are some of the most admirable people when they actually are most criticized. I know you and I have been patted down at the TSA and we dread it and we're like, here we go. But when you think about the millions of people that they have to daily, constantly be identifying threats from, and they catch a good amount of it, they've gotten very good. But when it comes to sometimes identifying backgrounds or being able to really understand that of who is in front of you, not just maybe what they portray to you and the psychological. Like, I'll give you an example. When I was traveling with my wife and things were a little shaky on immigration laws at the time, and it was like, gosh, we're flying to this where we were flying to we were flying to Oregon from Boulder at the time to Seattle. And I remember thinking, she has her license, but it's not a real ID, and it was before the real ID was required. And I was like, okay, Tammy, like, hold your passport and hold your license and hold them this certain way. And first, I'm gonna flash my U.S. passport. And it sounds a little bit manipulative, but I'll tell you, it was basically selling her as a very legit person. That's what it was. And I would show my passport that was US and be like, yes, this is my wife, Tammy. And then she would first show a US driver's license that wasn't really like fully, or it was like shaky on Real ID. And then the TSA agent would really question it because she's like, oh, yeah, you're good. Go ahead. Now, we weren't like having anything we weren't supposed to bring into to the airport, but we were doing something there to streamline the process of her going through security without extra questions being asked regarding immigration. And people honestly won't be able to do that with this. And while I know that it's, well, maybe they will, but I would imagine that it's going to be something that they're going to see. It's kind of like eliminating, not eliminating TSA, but making TSA's jobs easier potentially if people get through and they get to the port or entering, and then they have this extra level of biometric security. So the payoff with that is that you have a tremendous amount of data, which will be good for the company's value, but will also be most likely highly valuable for not just airports, but also ports of entry like that they're working with. We know that their contracts have been in the hundreds of millions of dollars, including some from what was Army research contract. They also had some contracts related to Department of Defense, and there's that Panama Forum there we're at. They even were working on some AI to help construct submarines, which was interesting. But the main focus they have is that recognition, the facial recognition. And it all came, a lot of it, after their IDIQ that they got. The IDIQ contract freed up a lot more ability for them to secure contracts with the Navy, with the Pentagon. They have a partnership there with Palantir as well. And so that's kind of what's led to the value that they are creating. And I think one of the sleeper things is that they have that World Cup coming up. I think there's going to be a lot of people coming in the US And that's going to be something that potentially could be valuable for them as a company. On top of that, you do have the massive amount of data that they're going to be processing, which, as you know, the money is in the data. Not necessarily do companies make money selling products as they do selling data. Now, it's a controversial topic. I think companies, they got to act with integrity, and it's very important, but also act in integrity with yourself. If you don't want somebody to sell your data, make sure to read the policies. You got to be a stickler about it if you're worried about it, because the reality is the companies, they have the free choice to do what they'd like. And the reality is that if they aren't doing something that people don't like, then you won't use them, or you'll have to find alternatives. And maybe the private jet industry will have markets expanded that you don't need to go through Big Bear when you're flying private. And they have even a lot of private jet companies becoming cheaper and cheaper as of recently, kind of starting their own mini airlines. I don't know if you guys see it, but it just opens up markets and it opens up more capital opportunities, I think. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but it is a little scary with the whole Big Bear approach. Nevertheless, I find it to be valuable. So we're looking at it. You see them sell down to here, recovering about 1% from that 3 or 4% dip. And we'll be watching them throughout the week. I think there will be a trade opportunity on the short term. If you guys would like to see our trading and live sessions each morning in StockMates, it's the second link in the description. We just wrapped up our live session this morning. We got into the quantum company IonQ, which was IONX. If I head over to the quantum watch list, they're an innovative quantum company at 2.8% so far today. Looks like we're up at one point about $400, but it's $67 now. It's a $3,300 investment, not huge. But then you got TSLL, which we sold for a profit of about $200 something at market open this morning. That's Tesla stock. And IONX is the IONQ stock, but it moves twice as much. Higher risk, which requires a more solid plan when investing. And so that's part of why we trade it, because we are pretty confident in our plan. If you want to become more confident about your analysis, your plans, your technical and your fundamental analysis, investing in cutting edge companies, then again, second link below for StockMate if you want to join us in our live session on Monday. And then also, again, we launched our virtual stock trading class. It's the first link in the description that I believe will help you to be able to identify emerging markets faster in the most profitable industries and market validated industries in the world. So I would encourage you to take a look at the first link if you would like to learn those things. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you all. Do consider hitting the like button if you enjoyed, and I earned it. Do consider subscribing. Take a good look at Big Bear or IonQ. Let me know your thoughts below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.